Walk with me real quick with the Toronto Raptors. This is a team that started off last season rough, then picked it up post All-Star break closing the season, going 13-14, posting the second best defensive rating in basketball during that stretch. And to note, they were the 26th best defensive rated team pre-All-Star break and jumped up all the way to the second spot in that. That is a crazy leap, just a way to turn around your season. They even had one of the weirdest seasons with injuries plaguing them, seeing RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley, key players, miss a good chunk of the season. They acquired Brandon Ingram at the deadline, who didn't play at all to close the season. I'm excited at this point to see the duo of Ingram and Scottie Barnes. I think these two are easily the most underrated passers respectively in the league, and it'll be interesting to see how they work off of each other. Ingram would be the number one guy given the ways he is able to score and create, but he does lack in creating those easy shots for himself, which questions how effective he can be as a number one guy. However, where Ingram lacks in downhill pressure, Scottie Barnes and even RJ Barrett thrives, and where Scottie lacks in perimeter shooting, Brandon Ingram thrives. Ingram and Barnes give the Raptors offense options to lean on. They were a rather poor offensive team last season, and Ingram is a lanky creator along the perimeter, great at carving out space to get a jumper off, and that length makes it to where he can virtually just shoot over anyone. He's a 20 points per game scorer who has shown promise in working on a weakness of him not taking much catch and shoot threes. He had this thing where he was just not taking a lot of them, and he shot last season 37% from 3, 40% off the catch last season, but granted, it's in limited games. But it was good seeing that he was willing to take more of them. He's one of the best mid-range creators in the league who can create off the dribble or utilize screens to get into a pull-up jumper. Ingram has the handle and creativity to get to his spots at will, but one thing he does struggle at, which questions his effectiveness as a lead creator, is creating against physical defenders. He doesn't create a ton of pressure at the rim and doesn't get to the free throw line at a high level, which kind of limits the amount of easy shots he is able to create for himself. His lack of strength and burst hurts him when trying to drive, and at times strong physical defenders can throw him off balance or speed him up, creating some awkward looking shots. He's a gifted passer, which is a plus. It's always a plus to have as many playmakers on the team as much as possible. Really shows promise with skip passes, dump offs, pocket passes, can really just make any sort of pass. Scottie Barnes had to step in being the team's first option, and though he had to battle poor spacing, I just don't believe his skill set translates to a lead number one creator. But he does look like he can be a very good second option. He's a rather meh shooter all around. The mid-range shot has become solid, but he doesn't have the quickest shot coming off of screens to constantly burn defenses. He doesn't have an explosive burst to constantly burn players one-on-one. He does have solid control on his dribble that helps him carve out angles to attack. Scottie is also a really good transition attacker, just battling for the rebounds, grabbing and going, and creating for himself or his teammates in transition opportunities. Scottie, I do believe, is probably one of the most underrated passers in the league and can be pretty creative with his passes. Very willing, can lead the break, work off of ball screens, and he usually makes the right reads. I think his best role here can be as a connector to the offense. You put him in situations where an advantage is already created and he can burn the defense. Putting Scottie in post-ups against smaller defenders, having him work off of cuts, using him as a screener or closeout attacker are ideal roles for him. I feel like Scottie can lean more into his strengths, more on offense, with having a guy like Brandon Ingram on this team that really does the things that Scottie can't. And Scottie is the best defender on this team, just extremely versatile, can defend different positions, rim protect. Again, just let him focus on what he does great at instead of being a lead guy. You would think the shooting overall for this team would improve next season with Immanuel Quickley, who was hurt last season but has always shown promise as a shooter, either off the catch or off the dribble. He can pull some deep ones off a heat check and is kind of that quick twitchy guard who can create shots with his jumper and floater within ball screens. He's kind of another guy who lacks that downhill pressure, and you question whether he can be a lead creator, but he looks to be a guy who can shoot the three ball, extend where defenses have to pick him up, and just be that third, fourth guy who can attack a scrambling defense. RJ Barrett has excelled in getting downhill. Though RJ does get downhill, he is pretty poor in converting at a high level at the rim. He's pretty left-hand dominant. He shot 61% at the rim last season, and for most of his career, he has shot below 60% at the rim. And for a 6'7" guy, that's not ideal for him. You kind of want him to be around 65% or above. But you just can't deny that he is really the only guy within the starting lineup who can get deep into the paint consistently with his burst handle, and though he is a below average finisher, he's a pretty good passer out of these situations. He's a solid shooter off the catch, shooting 36% off the catch threes. RJ does lack a mid-range game, not comfortable taking shots off the dribble from there. He doesn't really have touch on floaters. His main squeeze is just the spot up three, cut in, get into the rim, and hitting teammates for kickouts. Jakob Poeltl is kind of that dirty work big. He is good, reliable as a center, who gives you an interior presence on offense and defense. He can also work as a passer, handoff hub, not much shooting or a vertical presence, but he does the job of a big man. The duo of Ingram and Jakob could be lethal given Jakob's threat in the short mid-range area and scoring around the rim. And all around, I think with a healthy roster, this Raptors offense should improve. They have the perimeter outlets with Quickley and Ingram and the downhill threats with Barrett and Barnes. They can also lean on post play with Ingram and Barnes, and they have overall movement type players that can generate shots within the flow of the offense. And with the front court of Barnes and Poeltl, this team should continue to be one of the better second chance offensive rebounding teams in the league. The Raptors were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the league last season, just ranked 4th in the league. And that's always a valuable skill for a team to have, creating second chance opportunities. I think one of the things that the center spot from the Raptors needed other than Jakob is a choice of a stretch 5, and they are kind of missing that vertical lob threat and a strong roller. They brought in Mamu, who is a guy that can help up the front court with the shooting he provides, which the Raptors really lack. 37% from 3 on a couple of attempts, and he can attack closeouts against a rotating defense. Though Sandro isn't extremely mobile as a big, he does lack as a defender, and in spurts he can be useful and gives the Raptors more versatility in their lineups to where they can at least branch off into some 5-out spacing. Jonathan Mobo is a guy who fulfills that high energy, high motor, active rebounding, athletic guy who you can use as a center at times. He is undersized as a center. You can kind of have him as a power forward center. He's a strong passer who can add defensive pressure. I really liked his play with how he can be used as a handoff guy and make passes in those situations and just be disruptive as a defender who can switch out onto different guys and cause havoc, active on ball, speeding up ball handlers, and possessing quick foot speed. He has to be a better shooter. He is willing, but just doesn't knock them down at a good clip, but also has to be better with his touch around the rim, but there is positive marks with his motor. I get disappointed with his finishing because that's the thing that's holding him back from being a legitimate roller to the rim off of screens. And I feel like the Raptors still need to fulfill having that guy, a strong roller, vertical lob threat that they can at least lean on at times. Their rookie CMB looks to be someone who can be an interior scorer who can also defend the rim. Shooting isn't there, but he fulfills that role of an active cutter. The shooting was something that needed to improve with this team. Grady Dick lacks as a perimeter defender, which kind of caps him in a bench role for now, but the Raptors still have to work in generating open looks for him. He has good size, who can shoot the 3 ball off the catch at a good level, 38% off the catch. Jamison Battle, another guy who can shoot, shot 40% on 4 threes a game. Another option, Ochai Agbaji, showed promise as a shooter last season, shooting 39% on 4 attempts a game. There is other things he can do, such as cut, a transition attacker, a capable guy who can drive to the rim in a straight line and get to the basket. The Raptors do have shooting options. It's just a matter of how they can integrate those guys into the lineup. How consistent can those guys be also? Defensively, the Raptors, I'm not too worried about them. I think they can carry over the success from last season they have with the defensive pieces in Agbaji, Sheed, Barnes, Mobo, CMB, Walters, Poeltl, and when locked in, Barrett, Ingram, and Quickley can be solid on that end. This Raptors team can be a very scrappy defensive squad led by Scotty Barnes. It does seem like this will be a team that will kind of just pressure driving lanes with their length, heavy gap help, and heavy on rotations, but their defensive attack will lead into their transition attack, which they already proved they can be a threat at. I still have question marks on how good the shooting for this team can truly be. They have the options, but it also relies, as I said before, on consistency from those options from deep. Health is another thing, another factor obviously, but a healthy Raptors squad, even with the shooting questions, still have the creators and strong defensive squad to where they can very well find themselves in the playoffs in a weak Eastern Conference. That'll wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more NBA breakdowns like these. For all that being said, y'all, I will see you all in the next video.